Chapter 91. Fight. 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 Cruel killing. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Chrissy the Zamadeo drew an arc in the air. The afterimages looked like a river made from numerous silver lines. The strike went directly at Wilfred as it created a piercing wind. This happened too fast. Wilfred didn't expect that someone would appear at this location. The entrance of Four Season Valley was right behind him. What surprised him the most was the person. He was that young blacksmith from Franklin's blacksmith shop. This young blacksmith's warrior energy. In a split second, Wilfred formed a cross with the two polearms and struck at Qian Jin. The blade chopped at the polearms forcefully. A huge amount of brutal strength and aggressive force from the impact instantly rushed into his hands, arms, and shoulders. Wilfred felt pain and soreness in every part of his body. His butt sat towards the ground unstoppably, and both of his polearms cried after the impact. Two polearms were turned into four pieces. The sharp and chilling Zamadeo continued heading straight towards Wilfred's forehead. This. Number 3 Shelt was surprised by Qian Jin's suddenly strike. After being an assassin for several years, he immediately sensed that this was the best opportunity to strike. His mind and his body were coordinated perfectly. Like a jackal, he also rushed out of a bush and stabbed at the back of Qian Jin's head with a thin iron sword. Among assassins, only the assassin who killed the target could get a bigger portion of the reward. Shelt wasn't too confident in killing Qian Jin alone, so he had to partner with Number 1 and Nasta. But at that every moment, he clearly knew that Qian Jin would lower his guard down towards the surroundings to focus on the strike. The bonus is going to be mine this time, he thought. The thin, yet long iron sword was like the split tongue of a poisonous snake. It targeted the back of Qian Jin's head in a split of a second. Shelt could almost smell Qian Jin's unpleasant, yet stimulating bloody brain matter that would be exposed after the sword pierced through his head, and Shelt could imagine his comfortable and rich life after he saved Wilfred and pressured him in revealing the location of the energy stone load. A quick flash of chilling light that was reflected off the blade interrupted Shelt's daydream. Qian Jin's left foot that was on the ground suddenly twisted, and his body instantly turned around with the blade. The Zamadeo that was chopping downwards was pulled horizontally by Qian Jin and left a silver line afterimage parallel to the ground as it chopped by. Hidden poisonous snake, you finally appeared. A sly smirk appeared on Qian Jin's face as he turned around. For the last couple of days, he always felt like someone was following him, but he couldn't pinpoint where they were. Sophia's expression made him recall a face from his memory, and it also made him think of an idea that would test if there were truly enemies around. As soon as Shelt moved, Qian Jin felt the bone-chilling murderous intent. The Zamadeo instantly ditched the two polearms and Wilfred who had almost crapped his pants. Qian Jin turned around to deal with the poisonous snake like Shelt. Shelt was in the air for the strike. Although he wanted to dodge the attack, he couldn't find a place where he could step on to reposition himself. His body sensed the danger and reacted. He pulled back his sword and placed it in front himself to block the attack. The Zamadeo struck on the longsword, and the longsword broke in half as a crisp metal noise sounded. Qian Jin was expecting that. How is this possible? This is the sword that I spent a fortune on. It's made from level 8 refined iron. Although the body of the sword is thin, it's made from level 8 refined iron after all. Shelt's eyes opened widely. He felt a huge shock. However, he didn't have much time to think. After the Zamadeo cut through the long sword, it immediately cut into his body. Even if the target was a real war horse, Qian Jin was confident that he could chop it in half with this thick and wide Zamadeo. Currently, his target was only a human whose body was much smaller than a war horse. Puff. Shelt's body didn't even let out a sound as his bones were chopped in half. The only sound that was made was from blood and internal organs gushing and flying out of his body. Chopped by the waist. Qian Jin didn't even look at the gushing blood and internal organs that fell out of Shelt's body. He had seen these things in the endless world too many times already. His upper body suddenly shifted aside under his core strength coming from his waist as a whistle-like tweet sounded from the bush not too far from him. A sharp arrow tore through the air and barely missed Qian Jin. It flew by Qian Jin as its head rubbed against Qian Jin's chest and nailed itself into a tree not too far from him. It embedded itself into the tree more than 3 inches deep. The rest of the arrow was exposed in the air, and it continued vibrating rapidly. It made a buzzing sound. Too close. Cold sweat instantly appeared on Qian Jin's skin and forehead. It was fortunate that in the endless world, there were even more dangerous archers hiding behind dangerous killers. Qian Jin had gotten the chance to practice his ability in dodging arrows. Qian Jin stomped his left foot on the ground and pushed his body towards the bush as he chopped down with his Zamadeo. He chopped away the second arrow that was aiming at him. How is this possible? Number 2, Fatty Nasta, was so surprised that all the fat on his body started shaking. After Qian Jin chopped through number 3 Shelt, his focus should have been at an all-time low due to being distracted by his own strike. Even when I shot at demon fighters, I would still have a high success rate. How did I miss 2 arrows consecutively? During this short moment of surprise, Qian Jin's figure was getting closer and closer in Nasta's eyes. Qian Jin's charging speed shocked him even more. This kid just put the girl who was in his arms on his back. How can he still run this fast? Qian Jin smiled as he drew on his warrior energy continuously. Although Gabriella looked very thin and only weighed about 90 pounds, she was no longer light when Qian Jin started charging with her on his back. The fat on Nasta's face twitched, and his lips made a pia sound as it jerked due to over-nervousness. It sounded like someone was slapping his face. It wasn't because he had never seen opponents as powerful as Qian Jin. In fact, he killed a demon fighter who had just advanced with his arrows. However, Qian Jin's fast charging speed while carrying someone on his face really shocked him. More importantly, Nasta had been practicing his shooting technique for many years, and his senses were sharper than most of warriors in his rank. He clearly felt a thick and bloody murderous intent coming from Qian Jin who was charging at him with the Zamadeo in his hands. It felt like he was a murderer who had just walked out of a sea of blood. Nasta panicked as he placed the third arrow on his bow and pulled the bowstring. He forced himself to calm down and stop the arrow on the bow from shaking. In the time he used to take the deep breath, Qian Jin got a lot closer to him again. Nasta wanted to find number 1 and ask him to distract Qian Jin a bit, but he suddenly realized that number 1 had disappeared some time ago. Shit. After I kill Qian Jin, you will be next. Nasta swore out loud to vent to his negative emotions. The strong bow in his hand was fully drawn back. The process looked like the different stages of the moon. Nasta's focus was once again put on the strong bow, with the bow being his eyes and the arrow being his heart. He ignored everything around him and concentrated onto the target. Whoosh! The bowstring vibrated, and the arrow rotated in the air at a high speed and made a series of sharp whistling sounds as it pierced through the air. It traveled in a wave-like trajectory as it blew through several falling leaves like a meteor. It messed with people's eyes. Qian Jin couldn't tell where this arrow was aimed at. Qian Jin opened his eyes wide, and all he could see was the arrow and the afterimages it left in the air. He bent his knees and lowered his center of gravity, with his legs spread out to the same length between his shoulders. It looked like he was stably riding a warhorse. He subconsciously used the heat energy that suddenly rose from his chest. The forge breath technique pushed the heat energy through the dead reservoirs, and Qian Jin felt like the Zamadeo in his hand had turned into a forging hammer. He used the first hammering technique from the 18-blade elevating strike and chopped at the arrow, which held the most power among the 3 arrows. The blade seemed to turn into a meteor and smashed onto the tip of the arrow. Bam! The 2 forces collided, and the arrow instantly burst into dust in the air. What is this blade? Nasta was shocked. He had brought that arrowhead made from level 9 refined iron from a forging master in Yuli State's blacksmith union, but the arrowhead had been easily destroyed. At almost the same time, an eye-piercing light suddenly appeared from the side. Qian Jin chopped down at the arrow and then dragged the Zenamdo horizontally again. This time, he used the back of the blade and smashed at the light as if he was using a stick. Tink. Immediately following a crisp metal colliding nose, a series of bone-breaking noises also sounded. Number One's ribcage was shattered into pieces, and his body flew backwards like a sandbag. Qian Jin quickly followed Number One's body and kicked Number One, who had just landed on the ground, in his stomach. Number One was kicked back into the air, and the fourth and fifth arrow that Nasta shot out in a hurry stabbed into Number One's throat and abdomen. The two sharp arrows poked two huge holes in Number One's body. Nasta didn't have time to care about the part of his hands between his thumb and index finger that were tore open after he used his family's unique technique, connected arrows. He turned around and started to run. He screamed in his head, "Where did this monster come from? We are all level 9 warriors, but 2 level 9 warriors died after only 2 seconds. It also seems like he predicted my connected arrows. Is he really a level 9 warrior? Want to run?" Qian Jin bent his back and picked up Number One's sword's hilt. He carefully aimed at Nasta's back and threw the sword out. What is this? Nasta felt a wind on his back. He quickly turned around and used the strong bow in his hand with the turning momentum to hit the hilt away. His arms felt like his whole arm had bit a huge rock. A numb and sore sensation immediately passed through his arm until it reached his shoulder. What kind of physical strength does this kid have? Nasta became very scared. He had never encountered a target who had a great weapon, a great sensation and prediction for danger, a ferocious fighting style, a vicious and murderous intent which seemed impossible, and also such physical strength. Is this kid a behemoth bloodline warrior? Qian Jin was chasing after Nasta without stopping. He was a bit surprised as well. When did I become so accurate? The hilt that I threw out on a whim almost hit that assassin. Could it be that after all these days of practicing forging and focusing on the locations of metals have given me this accuracy? Qian Jin was thinking continuously, but his feet didn't slack off due to that. He would frequently pick up pine nuts that were the size of a fist from trees with different heights around him and throw them at Nasta. Although his accuracy dropped a lot, it still scared Nasta so much that his heart skipped several beats. This caused Nasta to slow down, and the distance between him and Qian Jin immediately shortened. The initial distance between them was only about 50 meters. The effective range of Nasta's arrows would be reduced significantly if the distance became any longer. The chilling sensation coming off of Qian Jin's Zenamdo made the skin on Nasta's back tense up. Wait! Nasta yelled, but he didn't stop his feet. Don't you want to know who hired me to kill you? Qian Jin shouted without thinking, Lucas. How did you know? Bingo. Then there is no more reason for you to live. Qian Jin stomped on the ground with his feet to give himself a boost, and then he chopped Nasta into 2 pieces with the cut tree strike. He was a bit relieved after he did that. He would never let enemies like Nasta live. The threat from those arrows was too great. More importantly, he could never let this fatty go back to Lucas and report the news. If his true strength was known by Lucas, who knew if he would go crazy and spend a fortune on hiring demon fighters for the next assassination operation. Chapter 92. Secret Technique and a Rush for Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Chrissy Nasta fell to the ground, and a book that had turned yellow slid out from the upper half of his body and fell to the ground. Qian Jin's eyes shined as he noticed the book. It was something an assassin would bring with him or her on a mission, as it was the very treasured. This assassin has a great shooting technique. Could it be something related to that? Qian Jin bent his back and picked up the book. He was stunned when he saw the cover page, Divine Shoot, by Yuri Johan. A book on the Yuri family's shooting technique written by the founder of the Yuri family and its bloodline. Wasn't he the one who was named the greatest archer of all time, the god archer himself? Did I find a treasure, or did I find burning charcoal? Qian Jin didn't know how he was to proceed. Even ordinary people who didn't have the Yuri bloodline could learn archery from studying the book that Yuri Johan wrote. However, if people from the Yuri family knew about this, then even if Qian Jin had 100 heads, there wouldn't be enough targets for the Yuri family to shoot at. They would never want one of their family's most important books to be read by an outsider. According to rumors, even the most powerful demon warrior would have a headache after hearing the name Yuri. Wilfred. Pay for my brother's life. Sophia's crisp shout resonated in the forest. Qian Jin turned his head around and looked at the direction of the noise. He lightly frowned, although he relied on his strong physical strength and the power of his Zenamdo to kill the 3 level 9 warriors. The continuous demand on his body and his warrior energy made him feel a little exhausted. And Wilfred? Qian Jin sighed as he turned around with the Zamadeo in his hand, and then returned to the previous battleground. He decided that he had to take another life. Wilfred must die. This man killed his teammates that he's known for 3 years, including the one who had saved his life 3 times for the sake of an energy stone load. If I let him live, he will also hire assassins just to keep the load a secret. At that moment, Qian Jin was certain that Wilfred had recognized him. If he didn't kill Wilfred, then Wilfred would hire assassins to kill him. There is no choice, this is for self-defense. Qian Jin rushed through the forests with the Zamadeo. After he got over the bush, there was no one at the old battleground. There were only messy footsteps that led to the entrance of Four Season Valley. Should I go in, or should I stay out of it? Qian Jin frowned as he turned around and said to Gabriella, who was on his back, I'm going to go into Four Season Valley. Otherwise, Wilfred will definitely try to kill me afterwards. It's very dangerous in there, so you don't have to go in if you don't want to. Gabriella lied on Qian Jin's back. Although the blood and destroyed corpses frightened her, she felt a sense of security as she lied on Qian Jin's wide back. Even though this killer's fighting style was very violent, it didn't scare her. Somehow, Qian Jin seemed reliable in her eyes. I. Gabriella looked at the enemy's bloodstains on Qian Jin's body and said timidly, I want to go with you. Unlucky. Damn unlucky. Wilfred complained in his mind repeatedly. Why am I so unlucky? Wasn't the reason why I killed my teammates who I hung around with for several years ruthlessly to keep the secret about the energy stone load? Moreover, it's rare to see people at this entrance of Four Season Valley, but why did someone come today? It's that blacksmith kid. Why is he so strong? Wilfred's steps were a little staggered, but he was still running away with all his might. He felt even more frustrated when he frequently looked back at the Sophia chasing after him with the forefinger wide sword. On a normal day, Wilfred was confident that he wouldn't be chased around by Sophia like this. Even if there were 2 Sophias, it wouldn't be like this. However, he currently had to run away like this. The brutal strength that Qian Jin used had dislocated his shoulders with just one strike. The area between his thumb and index finger were also torn open. Even his legs felt weak, and he couldn't use his strength freely. Under these conditions, he would be chopped into a dozen pieces by Sophia if she caught up to him. You bastard. That blacksmith kid. Although I can't kill you, I will pay a demon fighter a fortune just to get rid of you. After I run a bit more, my legs should be able to recover their strength. Wilfred murmured to himself. He turned his head around as he was going to say something threatening to regain some confidence, but a great shock reappeared on his face. The blacksmith kid who suddenly rushed into the bushes had come into Four Season Valley with that sharp and scary Zamadeo in his hand. He was also carrying the female mage apprentice on his back. What does he want to do? Kill me. Why? Could it be for the energy stone load? It has to be. A series thoughts flashed through his mind. H became even more resentful and surprised. This kid is a warrior. He would definitely kill me to keep the energy stone load a secret. Why is he so fearless? We're already inside a part of Four Season Valley. He dares to enter here. Wilfred. Sophia breathed heavily as she chased with the double-handed sword in her hand. The prior blood loss had decreased her vitality and speed. Stop, she yelled. Stop. Stop so you can kill me. Wilfred thought as he turned his head around and looked at Sophia. He didn't say anything. Although his legs recovered most of their strength, he didn't dare to stop and fight her. After all, not too far from her was a young man holding a thick and chilling Zanmadeo. His heavy murderous intent was chasing after him as well. Shit. He is running much faster than me. Wilfred was shocked by Qian Jin's speed. If this continues, that kid will catch up to me. Wilfred continued running as he looked up at the snow on the mountains on both sides of the valley. He then took a look at Qian Jin, who had almost caught up with Sophia, and made a fiendish decision in his mind. Don't want me to live. Wilfred suddenly stopped. He turned around and roared with all the strength in his lungs, then let's die together. Die together. Ah! The desperate roar resonated in the valley. Qian Jin suddenly felt the high mountains on both of sides started to shake. The rumbling noise turned from vague to clear, and then as loud as thunder in moments. He could clearly feel a cold current approaching, and the ground started to shake. This. Qian Jin turned his head and looked up. He instantly cursed all of Wilfred's ancestors and female family members. An avalanche. The white snow that accumulated on the high mountains on both sides of the valley began to slide off the mountains after the sound wave from Wilfred's roar reached them. The white snow howled as it rolled and fell towards the valley. In an instant, it felt like the snow had covered the valley's sky. Like a tsunami, the white snow rumbled and swept towards the valley with the power that could destroy any creature within it. A layer of cold sweat instantly appeared on Qian Jin's forehead. He was only a level 9 warrior. Even Oakland City's Guardian Fabratus could only turn around and run for his life if he was facing this situation. Otherwise, he would die as well. This is really troublesome. A big problem. Qian Jin reached for Gabriella and took her off of his back. He also twisted his shoulders and dropped Gabriella's big bag onto the ground. After that, he threw Gabriella onto his back again and started to run towards the inside of Four Season Valley like there was no tomorrow. Gabriella looked at her bag on the ground. She bit onto her lip and didn't talk. If she still wanted to keep her bag, it would get both of them killed. The only thing was that the bag was filled of samples that her classmates gave her. They asked her to find more items while she was at Sunset Mountains. If I do get the chance to return to the academy, will they bully me even because I lost their stuff, she thought. Death's shadow instantly covered the 4 people who were in the valley. At that moment, everyone had drawn out their potential that they never knew existed. Before that, Qian Jin felt fatigue while running with Gabriella on his back. But at that moment, his body didn't feel tired. He felt like he had unlimited strength and uncomfortable for not using it. Sophia's face turned pale as she saw the avalanche. She no longer breathed heavily and started to sprint. Wilfred, who was running at the very front, also felt extra strength in his body. Immediately, the 3 of them ran a lot faster. Behind them, the snow continued to fall and the avalanche chased tightly after them with thunderous might and speed. They all felt the bone-chilling cold current. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes. 14 minutes, 16 minutes. After running at full speed for a long time, Wilfred felt like his legs were turning weak and were about to give out. After his stamina was depleting, the residual effect of Qian Jin's forceful strike had showed itself. his steps were a lot softer and slower than before. Sophia's pale face had turned red, she was breathing heavily again. If the avalanche behind her stopped and didn't get any closer, she would have directly lied on the ground to get some rest. Tiredness. Qian Jin felt the fatigue in his body once more. Both of his arms and shoulders were heavily trained in the endless world, but his legs didn't get much training, the long-distance running had quickly revealed his weakness. Qian Jin finally caught up with Sophia. The swordswoman looked at Qian Jin. Before she was able to say anything, she heard Qian Jin's disciplinary roar, "Idiot! Throw away that useless sword of yours. You!" An angry expression appeared on Sophia's face. Before she could react, her wrist felt a painful sensation, her double-handed sword was seized by Qian Jin, who immediately threw it to the ground. Right after that, her wrist hurt again. She felt like her body was being dragged. "If your temperament and expression didn't feel and look like one of my friends, I wouldn't have cared about your life," Qian Jin said to Sophia without turning his head. He bit his teeth as he dragged Sophia along and tried to sprint even faster. In the end, he decided to keep his Zamadeo and the swordswoman in his arms in front of his chest. He didn't have time to care about Sophia's red face and ran like today was his last day of his life. Sophia's face was burning red, no one knew if it was because of the fatigue, or if it was because of her bashfulness. The Zamadeo, Gabriella and Sophia, Qian Jin had the impulse of throwing all of them away. They were just too heavy. If I didn't have the support of my level 9 warrior energy, or the replenishing effect from the forging breath technique, or even the physical strength that I got from the endless world, then I would have given out a long time ago. But how long is this entrance passage to Four Season Valley? Qian Jin looked at the rest of the curved entrance passage to Four Season Valley as he whined in his mind, he still couldn't even see the end. Chapter 93. The Memory Outburst. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Editor. You. Wilfred felt like there was suddenly a big shadow beside him. He was shocked to see Qian Jin beside him. He stopped running as he tried to raise his hand and organize himself into a defensive position as he prepared himself for battle. However, he realized that Qian Jin didn't even look at him. Qian Jin lowered his head and continued to run. Idiot! Qian Jin swore in his mind, he didn't look back at Wilfred who caused this avalanche. Where can I find the time to take care of you? If you can run through this Four Season Valley's entrance passage with me, I will just kill you then. Rumble. 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 The scope of this avalanche grew larger and larger. The silver-white snow had fully covered the sky above the portion of passage behind Qian Jin. Even the portion of the passage in front of him had become dark since the blowing snow blocked off some of the sunlight. A cold chilling breeze blew into Qian Jin's shirt. Help! Help me! Save me! Qian Jin heard Wilfred, who wasn't too far behind him, yell intermittently. But after a few seconds, Wilfred was buried in the snow. Qian Jin was happy that Wilfred died, but he was surprised by the speed of the avalanche. Exit. Qian Jin suddenly saw a big open field not too far from him. Although there was some accumulated snow, he could see some scarce plants and trees. A bit more. Just endure a bit more. Qian Jin bit his teeth as he rushed forward with his tired legs. He approached the exit of the passage quickly. 10 meters, 8 meters, 6 meters. 5 meters. 3 meters. The snow from the avalanche fell on Qian Jin's feet and lower half of his leg. To someone who had no stamina left, just a little snow would affect him. The snow was like a tough and powerful arm, and it grabbed onto his leg and feet. Damn! I'm really close. Qian Jin tried hard to pull his legs out of the slough, but he felt that the snow from the avalanche had already covered up to his thigh and his butt. Unlucky. Qian Jin looked at Sophia, who was in his arms in front of his chest, and bit on his teeth one more time. Damn it. Even if I can't get out of this, I can't let them die with me. Although I don't have any strength left in my legs, I still have a lot of strength in my arms. He grabbed onto Sophia with one hand and grabbed onto Gabriella, who was on his back, with the other hand. At the moment he threw the two girls away from the avalanche, it instantly buried him. In a second, the passage to Four Season Valley was buried under the shiny white snow. Although the snow close to the exit of the passage and the open field was thinner than elsewhere, it was still enough to bury lives under it. Sophia and Gabriella, who were thrown by Qian Jin, rolled several times on the ground before they reached a stop. When they looked up at the snow bluntly, Qian Jin was nowhere to be seen. Snow was one of the lightest substances in the world. When it touched human skin, it would instantly melt. But when a lot of these light substances accumulated, it would become as heavy as mountains. Qian Jin felt like the bones in his body were being crushed into pieces by the snow in the avalanche. He felt like his back was being punched by powerful warriors hundreds of times. Streams of blood were traveling up his throat and into his mouth. He couldn't move his body, and his conscience began to blur as everything became unclear. Scenes and memories from his life flashed by in front of his eyes. These scenes were very fragmented, they were like a series of pictures, but they weren't continuous or connected at all. All these fragmented pictures suddenly disappeared, and the conscious world in his mind lightened up. Then, the old face of his father, Qian Cheng, appeared clearer and clearer under the yellow and dark light from the oil lamp. Dad, I will be leaving. It's very different out there. It's very different from Qian family. Be careful of everything when you are out there. And Qian Jin wanted to say something, but he ended up holding it back after he looked at his father's old face. His father had sacrificed a lot so he could leave the Qian family. He already owed his father a lot since he couldn't share the burden on his father back. How could he open his mouth and ask for more? Son, Qian Cheng looked at Qian Jin quietly. He patted his son's shoulder with his rough hand as he sighed, it is Dad's fault. Dad couldn't become a bloodline warrior, so you have to suffer with me. Qian Jin bit onto his lips and shook his head quietly. In the Qian family, if someone was a bloodline warrior, then even if the person's kids didn't awaken their bloodlines, they would still be treated well. However, the same logic went the other way as well. If someone woke up their bloodline, even if the person's parents were not bloodline warriors, they would be compensated greatly. Dad. Qian Jin's voice sounded a little hoarse. It's me. I'm useless. Under the dark yellow light from the oil lamp, Qian Cheng's face looked even older. He lightly patted Qian Jin's shoulder as he said, Son, Luna grew up alongside you, so I understand the relationship between you guys. However, sometimes it's really just up to fate. It sounded like he was comforting Qian Jin, but it also sounded like he was comforting himself. Qian Jin nodded quietly, but an unwilling expression flashed by his face. I know you like Luna, and Luna likes you back as well. Qian Cheng lightly sighed desolately. However, you know that Luna's family agreed to your relationship because you had a chance to awaken the bloodline. You are a member of one of the 3 ultimate bloodline families. Now, after you fail to awaken your bloodline, even if Luna still wants to be with you, her family won't agree to it. Don't forget, her family is a bloodline family as well. I know, Dad. Qian Jin never knew that saying one sentence could take all of someone's soul. However, after he said that, he felt like a part of him had instantly vanished, as if it was sucked away by something. Okay, you should leave a bit earlier. Qian Cheng stood up and pushed open the door. He then bent his back as he walked out of the room. Qian Jin looked at his father's back as he felt a bit sad. His father didn't bend his back intentionally, it was the heavy burden of survival that pushed and forced him into this situation. Come on, go. With his hands at his back, Qian Cheng lightly bent his back as he led the way. From Qian Jin's perspective, this man who should have been at his prime in his 40s looked like an elder who was in his 60s from the back. His steps were a bit staggered, and he didn't look or feel like a warrior. Qian Jin's conscious world suddenly lit up again, and the scene turned into an empty street. Under the dark sky filled with bright stars, a young girl stood by the end of the street. Her long and smooth black hair fluttered in the breeze, and her light green dress outlined her long legs. Even the darkness couldn't block off her lively eyes that were filled with stubbornness and resilience. The wind was lightly blowing through the city. Qian Jin stood by one end of the street, and Luna stood by the other. They just stood there quietly and stared at each other in the eyes. No words were spoken, but Qian Jin saw numerous words in Luna's eyes. I will wait for you. I will wait for you. It doesn't matter what my family's arrangement for me is. I will wait for you. You will become a great and powerful warrior. I will wait for you to come back and marry me. I will become powerful as well. I won't let anyone close to me. Just you wait. I will come back. Even if your family arranges a marriage for you and you are already a bloodline warrior's wife, I will come and get you out of there and make you mine. Under the stars, Qian Jin shouted at the nightly sky with all of his lungs' power. After that, he quickly turned around and walked into the darkness, leaving the beautiful figure standing alone by the other side of the street. The blinding light shined in Qian Jin's conscious world again, and Qian Cheng's bent back and staggered steps were the only thing left in Qian Jin's mind. But after viewing this scene for a few seconds, it changed into that of a lonely beautiful girl standing at one end of the street. The two scenes twitched around in Qian Jin's mind continuously, and Qian Jin's body that was slowly freezing due to the snow on top of him started to recover some heat. The two extremely emotional scenes stimulated Qian Jin's mind, blood, and warrior energy. In addition, the forging breath technique started to operate in his body as if they were three burning fires. Death. I can't let this happen. I haven't become a great warrior that my dad can be proud of. I haven't married Luna and made her mine yet. My dad has always seen Luna as his daughter. Law, so how can I die before I make it a reality? The warrior energy was conducted from his hands into the Zanmadeo. His burning blood slowly melted the snow around his body. As his strength slowly recovered, his warrior energy also started to run through his body like a rapid current in a large river. His arms and shoulders that were trained by Blake for many days started to slowly lift through the snow. The Zanmadeo shined and let out an unprecedented light under the snow. The heavy and hard snow was separated to two sides of the blade, but the snow above fell down again and covered the blade. Soon, the snow was separated again, and then covered. Break. 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 Open. 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 Gabriella's eyes suddenly shined. She discovered that the snow, which was originally sitting quietly in front of her, started to move. There was a spot where the snow was slowly collapsing, although it was very minimal, it was still noticeable. Could it be? Gabriella looked at the accumulated snow tensely. The speed at which the snow was collapsing seemed to be faster than before. It got even faster. And faster. Let me loose. An angry roar penetrated through the accumulated snow and shot up towards the sky as a shiny Zanmadeo poked through the snow. Qian Jin used his legs to kick the hard snow around him, and he used his arms to make more space for himself in the snow. He didn't even touch the snow on his eyebrows. He blew hot air at the snow above his face and tried to get it to melt faster. Finally, he climbed out. A loud roar. A weak rumble started to sound in this quiet four-season valley after the roar. Qian Jin raised his head and saw the accumulated snow on the mountain start to slide off again. He had no time to laugh out loud and celebrate his survival and show heroic side of himself. He rushed out of the snow and the passage to the valley with the help from both of his hands and feet and the Zanmadeo. Just to break free from all the accumulated snow, Qian Jin had depleted all of his strength. He lied on the open field in Four Season Valley and looked up at the aftermath and catastrophe caused by the avalanche, as well as the tsunami-like snow that poured down from the mountains with devastating power. He felt extremely lucky. If he wasn't buried by the softer snow at the very end of the avalanche, even if he had a strong will for survival, the level 9 warrior energy, and the Zamadeo, he would have died over 100 times. Gabriella and Sophia each hung onto one of Qian Jin's arms and dragged him towards the center of Four Season Valley laboriously. Although they were in the inner part of Four Season Valley, they didn't know if another avalanche was going to bury them if they stayed too close to the passageway. After they dragged Qian Jin backward about 50 to 60 meters, they also sat onto the ground and took a rest. Gabriella was a mage apprentice, so she was physically weak in the first place. On the other hand, Sophia was a swordswoman and should have had enough strength, but after the huge amount of blood loss, she didn't have much strength left either. Chapter 94. For Season Valley. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Editor. A light bulb went off in Qian Jin's head as he recalled the devastating presence of the avalanche. If he could make his chops have that kind of presence and devastate enemies in such a way, then he could almost always win against enemies of a similar rank to him. It doesn't matter if it's cut tree 8 strikes, or beast fighting techniques. Even the Qian and Kuan fighting technique from the Qian family have taken ideas and inspirations from nature. Could I take something from this avalanche? Qian Jin murmured to himself. He squinted his eyes subconsciously and quietly stared at the snow that buried the passageway, as well as the snow mountains that had collapsed. He tried to recall the scene of the avalanche. While he was running away from it, he felt like the sky was falling down. He wanted to grasp onto the devastating sensation and become inspired, but he couldn't really get anything useful out of it. However, the apocalyptic scene was deeply seared into Qian Jin's mind. Everyone was silent as they listened to the thunder-like rumbles of the second avalanche. No matter who it was, anyone who experienced running for their life in the avalanche would feel like their brain wasn't functioning properly. However, if a person watched and experienced 2 avalanches back-to-back, then it would be normal for his or her brain to be chaotic. The second avalanche lasted much longer than the first one. A lot of the accumulated snow was blown into Four Season Valley by the chilling wind created by the avalanche. The cold wind forced the 3 people to regain their consciousness. Where was this place? Four Season Valley. According to previous information, this was the place where vicious demon beasts and beast groups lived. Not even demon fighters would come here casually. Qian Jin turned his head and looked around. He found that except for the loud rumbling coming from the avalanche and the snow blowing everywhere, there wasn't anything else. There were no lifeforms around. Could it be due to the avalanche? It may have been so disruptive that it scared away the demon beasts who lived around here. Qian Jin used the Zamadeo to help him stand up. He quickly observed his surroundings. From his experience obtained in the endless world traveling to the mountains and looking for the iron ore mine, Qian Jin developed a habit of looking for the best places to defend, attack, and hide when in a foreign environment. A stone cave. Qian Jin saw an opening at the bottom of a nearby mountain. The opening was just wide enough for one person to fit through at a time. That opening was well hidden. Qian Jin wouldn't have found it if he didn't look carefully. Perhaps this cave was blocked off by the snow and ice, and the avalanche had shaken away the snow and revealed it. Even if this was the case, if Qian Jin didn't have a lot of survival experience in the wild, it wouldn't be easy for him to find it. Qian Jin used the Zamadeo as a cane and walked forward 2 steps with great difficulty. I'm very lucky. Thank God, I was buried by the snow at the very end of the avalanche, making it much easier to climb out of. Otherwise, even with my level 9 warrior energy protecting me, my bones would be crushed into pieces. My bones are okay, but what about my hat? Qian Jin panicked as he reached for the mage hat tied to his back. He calmed down and worries went away as he felt the mage hat on his back. It seemed like the hat wasn't damaged at all. Gabriella and Sophia followed Qian Jin closely. They were confused by what Qian Jin was doing. After seeing Qian Jin's strength and how he saved their lives, they subconsciously relied on him in the Four-Season Valley. After all, this was the valley where demon beasts and vicious animals could jump out at any moment. When Qian Jin approached the cave, he readjusted his warrior energy and held onto his Zamadeo tightly. He slowed down and carefully walked forward. He couldn't be certain that this cave in Four-Season Valley was safe. There might be ferocious animals and demon beasts living inside. A cave. Sophia couldn't believe that Qian Jin had discovered a cave. When Wilfred and the former fire adventure team took the chance to enter this dangerous valley, they didn't discover this cave, despite a careful and detailed inspection. Qian Jin was getting closer and closer to the cave. Even though he couldn't sense any danger from the cave, he still approached the cave very carefully. He was afraid that some kind of demon beast who was good at hiding its presence and scent might suddenly attack. "Does anyone have a fire stick?" Qian Jin turned his head and asked the two girls behind him. Sophia carefully took out a wooden stick that about the size of an index finger and twisted open the top of the stick. After lightly blowing at it, a fire about the size of a pinky finger instantly popped up the top of stick. "Dry grass, find some dry grass or plants." Qian Jin stared at the cave and carefully commanded. Sophia instantly understood his intention. He wanted to use the smoke method to test the cave. After lighting some dry grass on fire and throwing it into the cave, the smoke would make any creature inside the cave come out, if there was any. Although Four-Season Valley was mostly covered by white snow, it wasn't too hard to find dry grass and plants. Sophia could find some dry grass and plants since she had experience surviving in the wilderness. After Qian Jin lit it up, he threw it into the cave. Crackle. The fire burned in the cave, and thick smoke came out and quickly filled the cave. Qian Jin waited about half an hour. After the fire had burnt out and the smoke was almost all dispersed, he carefully entered the cave. He found that the space inside the cave was far greater than the entrance. Just the width of the cave could fit a big horse carriage and two more people beside it. The cave extended into the mountain. Qian Jin held up the fire stick and carefully walked in with the help from the flickering fire. He realized that he was at the end of the cave after going in 10 meters. From the information he had, Qian Jin felt like this was a great place to stay. The ground was dry, and there weren't any hairs or fecal odors from demon beasts or animals. "Come on in, it's safe in here." The two girls outside carefully squeezed into the cave after they heard Qian Jin's voice. They were both surprised by how big the cave was. "You guys stay here. I'll go out there and double check." Qian Jin squeezed out of the cave with his Zamadeo. He lightly shook his head as he saw the ongoing avalanche. "It looks like it'll be hard to leave this place even after the avalanche stops, unless all the snow melts. Otherwise." Qian Jin turned his head and stopped looking at the avalanche. He looked at Four-Season Valley carefully to assess what kind of a situation he was in. Nearby, the ground was entirely covered in white snow. There were dry grass and tree branches sticking out. A bit farther away, there was a green pine tree forest. Snow also covered the leaves and branches, decorating the trees in a winter theme. Qian Jin shrugged his shoulders subconsciously. He only needed a single layer of clothes outside of Four-Season Valley. He never expected that he would be locked in the valley by the avalanche, and that he would be stuck when he came close to Four-Season Valley to inspect it. After he stayed in Four-Season Valley for a bit, his body felt a bit cold. "If I knew this were the case, I would have taken a few pieces of animal fur when I came in." Qian Jin stabbed the Zamadeo in the ground and rubbed his hands together as he blew hot air onto them. He stomped his feet and moved around to try to warm up his body. He looked around again, trying to find something that would help him stay warm. Something like a cotton jacket. However, other than snow, there were only trees around. "Damn it!" Qian Jin bit his teeth and stomped on the ground forcefully a few times. He quickly gathered some dry grass on the snowy ground and quickly tiptoed his way towards a small forest about 300 to 500 meters away. He used his Zenamdo to chop down a small pine tree, cut off all the branches and split the tree trunk into a 2-meter tall piece. After, Qian Jin ran back to the cave with the dry grass and the big piece of wood. "We probably can't leave this cave tonight," Qian Jin said as he used the Zamadeo as an axe and chopped the pine wood into smaller pieces. "We have to stay in this cave at least tonight. To prevent us from freezing, can you guys please go and find more dry grass and dry tree branches? Remember, don't go too close to that little forest. It might be dangerous around there." Sophia stared at Qian Jin as he moved. She couldn't wrap her mind around it. Does he want to light up the wood and dry grass to stay warm? If he does that, then we would choke to death by all the smoke before we even get warm, she thought. Gabriella used both her hands and feet and climbed out of the entrance of the cave clumsily. Although mages would jog and exercise to stay healthy, the intensity of their workouts was much lower than that of warriors. On top of that, the entrance of cave wasn't easy to get through, so her movement looked even clumsier. In the snow field within Four Season Valley, Gabriella, who was in her mage robe, carried an armful of branches and wood. However, it wasn't much in Qian Jin's eyes. She slowly walked back towards the cave. Qian Jin used the limited fire he had and melted some snow, and then he used the Zamadeo to mix it in with the frozen soil that he dug up. After, he carried the mud back into the cave and quickly formed a simple furnace with it. He mixed some dry grass with the leftover mud and made a thin and crude funnel. He connected it with the top of the furnace and put the other end outside of the entrance of the cave. Sophia blushed as she watched Qian Jin put everything together. Although Qian Jin's method wasn't magical, it was unexpected. "I've been an adventurer for more than 3 years, yet I can't even beat this grade 1 warrior student in this situation. How did he think of it? I don't think most of adventurers could come up with this method," she thought. After lighting up the dry grass inside the furnace, Qian Jin placed small branches on top of the dry grass, followed by the bigger pieces of woods on the very top. Sophia watched Qian Jin work smoothly. She asked curiously, "How do you know all this?" Qian Jin grabbed a handful of snow that he brought into the cave ahead of time and washed his hands with it. He smiled and said, "After reading a lot of books, you will know a lot of stuff." Reading a lot of books. Sophia was even more curious as she looked at Qian Jin. "Are things like this recorded in books?" Qian Jin put the lid he made from the thick mud onto the opening on the side of the furnace. After he felt the heat coming from the furnace, his worry about freezing to death vanished. He thought to himself, "When I was still a part of the Qian family, I wanted to make some money, so I worked at the Qian family's external library. When I got bored, I read the notes from an adventurer and this method was recorded on it." After finishing all the work, the cave became quiet again. The only sound left was the crackling noise coming from the wood in the furnace. Suddenly, a grunting noise sounded in the cave, and all 3 people heard it. A bitter smile came on Qian Jin's face as he rubbed his stomach. Of all the roasted meat that he obtained from hunting small animals in Sunset Mountains, a portion of it had already been eaten, and the rest was in Gabriella's bag that Qian Jin ditched in the avalanche. "I probably shouldn't have left that bag," Qian Jin thought. At this point, he didn't have a lot of stamina left, and his warrior energy hadn't fully recovered. If he took the chance and went out to hunt in this Four-Season Valley that was full of demon beasts and vicious animals, it would be no different from committing suicide. Chapter 95. Advancing to level 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Editor. This. In the dark, Gabriella said timidly, I still have some rabbit meat." With help from the weak light, Gabriella took out a few pieces of rabbit meat, each about the size of a fist each, and handed them to Qian Jin carefully. Qian Jin smiled bitterly after he saw the rabbit meat in Gabriella's hand. "That's why you are a bit heavier than I thought," he said. Sophia on the other hand stared at Gabriella's mage robe in envy. The reason why mage robes were big and fat was because it was easier for mages to carry magic scrolls. It would help them protect themselves and survive in battles. But except for magic scrolls, mages could also store other things in their robes, including food. The few pieces of rabbit meat helped the three avoid hunger through the night. It would give them enough stamina and energy for the next day. Gabriella took out the last 3 pieces of the rabbit meat she had and saved those for breakfast the next day. Qian Jin dragged his Zamadeo and found some dry grass and stones and chopped some dry tree branches. He used them to temporarily seal up the entrance of the cave so cold wind wouldn't blow in. Then, he found a spot that was closer to the entrance of the cave, but was still warm from the furnace. He lied down on a layer of dry grass and grabbed onto the level 4 energy stone in his pocket. He absorbed the warrior energy inside and used it to recover the warrior energy he had lost. Streams of pure warrior energy flowed from the level 4 energy stone into Qian Jin's palm. He cycled the warrior energy from the stone through his body according to the Qian family's basic warrior energy training scroll. The energy reservoirs that were almost depleted in his body were replenished by the new warrior energy. They quickly became active, and the warrior energy from the stone was converted into warrior energy inside Qian Jin's body. It flowed and cycled inside of him rapidly. Qian Jin's pale face gradually turned red and recovered. The energy stone lit up and dimed frequently in Qian Jin's palm, and the warrior energy stored inside was quickly pulled out. Eventually, Qian Jin fully recovered his level 9 warrior energy. However, Qian Jin realized that his energy reservoirs were still not fully filled with warrior energy yet. Somehow, his energy reservoirs had expanded like a water reservoir that was reconstructed. Qian Jin thought about it and quickly understood the reason behind it. After using all his strength and trump cards to kill those 3 level 9 warriors, carrying the 2 girls and sprinting for his life and being buried by the avalanche, his energy reservoirs had been stretched and challenged to produce enough warrior energy for Qian Jin to survive. They adjusted themselves and were like perfect water drops. They operated without interfering with each other. Today, the warrior energy that was about to fill up the energy reservoirs, the warrior energy that looked like water drops slowly separated out into thin branches about 1/10 the thickness of hair. These thin branches gradually reached out and flowed towards other water drops of warrior energy. Eventually, the warrior energy looked like a spider web connected by these thin branches. Qian Jin, who was in a very calm state, suddenly felt a great amount of surprise and happiness. This was a significant sign for advancing from a level 9 warrior to a level 10 warrior. It was clearly documented that to become a level 10 warrior, one must connect all the warrior energy in the 10 energy reservoirs. These energy reservoirs couldn't be isolated from each other. These energy reservoirs could now communicate with each other, and his warrior energy had increased drastically. Qian Jin was now a level 10 warrior, the rank of warriors closest to a demon fighter. The moment Qian Jin's calm state was interrupted, the warrior energy that was slowly flowing changed. A small branch of warrior energy that had just left one energy reservoir and reached for another instantly paused and began to retract. Qian Jin quickly felt the movement of his warrior energy and calmed himself down. He controlled the 10 thin warrior energy branches and slowly guided them to other energy reservoirs. Sophia stared at Qian Jin with the help from the weak light coming from the furnace. She was a bit nervous, but she calculated the time in her head. There was a limit for how long a warrior could use energy stones each day. If energy stones were used to recover warrior energy, then there was no limit. It was only pulling the warrior energy from the stone and filling up his or her own energy reservoirs. But if energy stones were used to help a warrior increase his or her warrior energy, then the time limit was 3 hours. If it went longer than 3 hours, there would only be negative consequences and no benefits, possibly even damaging one's energy reservoirs. Sophia was sure that after Qian Jin filled up his warrior energy, H was currently using energy stones to increase his own warrior energy. From the look of it, he had been so for at least 2 hours. If he tried to increase his warrior energy and ignored the time limit, then he would definitely damage his own body. Suddenly, the muscles at the corner of Qian Jin's eyes twitched, and a wild and joyous expression appeared on his face. All 10 energy reservoirs in his body were finally connected by the 10 thin warrior energy branches. It looked like all 10 energy reservoirs were connected by a straight line. After the 10 energy reservoirs were connected, it seemed like they had instantly become alive. They were connected by this long line and they stimulated each other. Qian Jin felt an unprecedented warrior energy surge in his body. Qian Jin couldn't suppress his excitement any longer. He raised his head and let out a loud roar. The roar resonated in the cave. It was so loud and ear-piercing that it made both Gabriella and Sophia cover their ears with their hands. The warrior energy in his body was becoming more and more stimulated. What made Qian Jin more excited was that since compared to when his energy reservoirs weren't connected, the same amount of warrior energy could cause more than twice his previous power and damage. If he met those 3 level 9 warriors again, he was confident that he could kill all 3 of them before he felt any fatigue. Qian Jin opened his eyes and looked at the entrance to the cave. He felt a bit more comfortable and confident surviving in Four Season Valley. You. Sophia couldn't believe it. She asked quietly, you just. Qian Jin smiled in the dark. He was only 1 step away from becoming a demon fighter, so he wanted to share his happiness with others. He said without any hesitation, I just advanced. I'm now a level 10 warrior. Level 10. The cave fell into a moment of silence. An unbelievable expression appeared on Sophia's face. How old is this guy? A grade 1 warrior student actually became a level 10 warrior, just 1 step away from demon fighter, she thought. Sophia stared at Qian Jin in surprise as she suspected, could this young man be a bloodline warrior who had an awakened bloodline? If he wasn't in this dangerous Four Season Valley, Qian Jin would instantly enter the endless world and test the strength of a level 10 warrior. After the roar, Qian Jin suppressed his excitement inside as he looked at the level 4 energy stone in his hand. He could only use this energy stone for more days. If only I could get another set of energy stones, he thought. Wait, 4 days. A bitter smile appeared on Qian Jin's face after he realized he was now a level 10 warrior. I almost forgot. I'm a level 10 warrior now, so a complete level 4 energy stone about the size of a fist will only last me a day. Qian Jin sat back down on the floor and carefully recalled the information he read from the books about the energy stones. A level 1 energy stone the size of a fist would last a full month for a level 1 warrior in theory, if he or she used it only for increasing his or her warrior energy and not recovering. However, a level 1 energy stone wouldn't help a level 1 warrior advance to a level 2 warrior. It depended on the warrior's talent. If a level 2 warrior used a level 1 energy stone, it would only last him or her 25 days. It would only last 20 days for a level 3 warrior, 15 days for a level 4 warrior, 10 days for a level 5 warrior, and 5 days for a level 6 warrior before all of the energy stored in the stone was depleted. The level 1 energy stone could only be used by a level 7 warrior for 1 day. A level 2 energy stone could be used by a level 8 warrior for a day, while a level 3 energy stone could be used by a level 9 warrior for a day. Therefore, a level 4 energy stone would only last a day for a level 10 warrior. Energy stone. Qian Jin shook his head with a bitter smile on his face. If he could find a level 10 energy stone, then he would be able to use it every day for 30 days. Unfortunately, he only had this level 4 energy stone. The cave quieted down again. Sophia had recovered from her shock. She started to recover her warrior energy and increase it as well. Gabriella was sitting on a pile of dry grass and mediating as usual. Qian Jin also started to meditate, which was mandatory for all mages, and continued his habit that he never stopped. After an hour, Qian Jin reopened his eyes without showing too much disappointment. This situation had occurred so many times already, it was just another night. The night continued as the moon slowly climbed over the top of the sky. Qian Jin, who closed his eyes, suddenly opened them as he stared in Gabriella's direction with surprise. There was a huge amount of spiritual power coming out of her body. Qian Jin stared at Gabriella, who had a huge and abnormal amount of spiritual power, and thought to himself, if all the mage branch instructors at Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy were standing in front of her right now, they would be so ashamed that they would dig a hole in the ground and bury themselves. The amount of spiritual power is so great that it's at the verge of being converted into magic power. Where is the Gabriella who was in danger of being kicked out of the academy for her lack of talent? If the Gabriella that I'm staring at is going to get kicked out, then Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy should cancel its mage branch and change its name to Oakland's Warrior Academy, because no one would satisfy its talent requirement. Hi, thanks for taking care of my sister. Allow me to introduce myself. The fire stick that Gabriella lit up helped Qian Jin see her cold eyes under the mage hat in the dark. Her tiny body gave off powerful sensation that was comparable to Qian Jin's. My name is Gloria, she said. The cold voice lightly resonated in the dark cave. It gave off a proud attitude, but this attitude couldn't make anyone feel annoyed. You sister. Your name is Gloria. Qian Jin frowned as he looked at Gabriella, who gave off a complete feeling despite being the same person. He couldn't stop asking himself, what just happened? It's clearly the same person, but how did her presence and attitude complete change, and why is she calling herself Gloria? You. Qian Jin suddenly remembered the stories of traveling poets. Although he felt like the stories were nonsense before, he couldn't come up with a better explanation. Are you an undead? Undead. In the legends, if someone died with a deep grievance, he or she could turn into a special soul that would be used by mages who researched forbidden magic. These mages would make the soul enter a living person or a corpse, and they would become a living being that couldn't be counted as a living person. Chapter 96. Snow Tigers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Editor. Undead. Gloria's thin eyebrows slightly twisted as she frowned. After she sighed, she said with a lonely tone, I don't even know what I am. Maybe I'm an undead like you said, or maybe I'm not. I was generated from my little sister's excessive longing for me. A second identity. Qian Jin remembered a technical term from a medical book he read and quickly said it out loud. A second identity. A pondering expression appeared on Gloria's face. Then, a cold smile appeared. It was so cold that Qian Jin felt like it was even colder than the weather in Four Season Valley. This is a very suitable term. Did you come up with it? She asked. Qian Jin laughed as he shrugged his shoulders. Among all the peers his age, very few of them had read as many books as him. This was true, even among the young people who wanted to become civil officials, doctors, or other professions who needed to read a lot. I'm going to start meditating. Gloria said coldly. After she said that, she sat on the dry grass and controlled her great spiritual power to quickly enter into a meditative state. Qian Jin didn't expect there to be such a huge difference between Gloria's and Gabriella's personality. He was surprised by the huge amount of spiritual power and couldn't go back to sleep right away. He leaned his back against the wall and looked at Gloria, who seemed a little strange. After making a lot of hypotheses about what was going on, he decided to open his mouth and ask, Are you interested in chatting a little? Some other day. Gloria didn't open her eyes as she answered back casually, I need to condense my spiritual power into magic power. Qian Jin's expression froze on his face as he was shocked. Condense spiritual power into magic power. Gloria is only 1 year older than me. There really is a huge difference between mages and warriors, he thought. After condensing all of one's level 10 spiritual power into magic power, then Gloria would become a real supreme mage. When a group of mages formed a magic array, a supreme mage would be the center of the array. They were responsible for controlling the array. The supreme mage would combine all of the mage's spiritual power together and use the magic array to cast a large scale magic spell. When a mage fought a warrior one-on-one, he or she could only use magic scrolls. The complexity of the arrangement of magic elements resulted in mages being unable to instantly cast spells like the fireball spell. Even low-ranked spells such as the slow spell and frighten spell required a few seconds to be casted. However, supreme mages were completely different. They were a bunch of monsters who had completely converted their spiritual power into magic power. They could easily cast magic spells like slow spell instantly, even the fireball spell could be instantly casted. Of course, if a supreme mage was facing a warrior in a one-on-one situation, he or she wouldn't instantly cast spells like fireball spell. Warriors weren't dummies or scarecrows that couldn't move, they could dodge and defend themselves. Supreme mages still used magic scrolls during fights against warriors and other mages. The only difference was that they drew and made their own magic scrolls. The power of the scrolls that mages used was no match to the power of the scrolls that a supreme mage made. Condensing spiritual power into magic power. Even the most famous advanced mage academy at Zens Empire's capital, the Holy Capital, would be more than happy to accept such a student and pay for all her expenses. In a sense, a supreme mage who condensed their spiritual power into magic power was similar to demon fighters who advanced from a level 10 warrior. However, if you had to rank their status, even Qian Jin would agree that a supreme mage had a higher status than a demon fighter. The power and damage that a supreme mage had and could deal was limited, but a supreme mage who had the help of a group of mages could create an oscillation between their magic power and spiritual power. The power generated from it was the nightmare for any military troops on the battlefront. According to a document in the Qian family, Zola Shoran, the greatest mage who had ever lived in Zens Empire, the Mage Oracle was an unprecedented mage genius and was praised by all the mages. He was only 19 when he condensed his spiritual power into magic power and advanced to a supreme mage. Qian Jin looked at Gabriella, or rather Gloria, in front of him. This girl was only a year older than him, but she was already condensing her spiritual power into magic power. She was only about 17. If people from the Mage Union saw her, would they kneel in front of her and beg her to join the Mage Union? This is strange, Qian Jin stared at Gloria in confusion. No matter what Gloria was, the fact that she used the same body as Gabriella couldn't be altered. Why do I feel a little inferior when I face Gloria, yet why did Gabriella achieve the worst record in Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy mage student history? After 2 hours, Gloria's spiritual power increased, but it didn't condense into magic power like she said. After a short period of silence, Gloria's cold, yet agreeable voice resonated in the cave again. Gabriella doesn't know of my existence. Oh. Qian Jin nodded. I won't tell her then. Are you interested in talking now? I'm a bit curious. What kind of strange past did you and Gabriella experience? How did it form this weird state that you're in? He asked. Gloria, who was still wearing the mage hat, lightly opened her lips and yawned. She said lightly, there is no time today, we can chat another time. If you are in a dangerous situation and need some help, you can yell my name Gloria, and I can come out and help you for a short period of time. The word, you, resonated in the cave as Gabriella's body lightly lied down onto the dry grass. She fell into a deep sleep, as if nothing had happened. It was as if Qian Jin was hallucinating about Gloria. Qian Jin rubbed his sore eyes, with one hand on his Amadeo, he leaned against the dry grass and the wall and went back to sleep. The morning sunlight shined and reflected on the snowfield in Four Season Valley. The sunlight that should have been warm didn't provide any heat as it hit the valley, and it couldn't melt the silvery white accumulated snow. Qian Jin ate the piece of rabbit meat that belonged to him, and then he grabbed 2 handfuls of snow as he stuffed them into his mouth for water. After, he grabbed the Zamadeo as he observed the surrounding of his temporary residence carefully. Qian Jin was now a level 10 warrior with all of his 10 energy reservoirs connected as one. Although he was still a little bit cold, he wasn't as cold as he was yesterday, where he had to continuously rub his hands and stomp his feet to stay warm. Connecting the 10 energy reservoirs was only the beginning, and Qian Jin wasn't a demon fighter yet. However, he had already shown a clear difference between a level 10 warrior and a level 9 warrior. Qian Jin stood in front of the passage where he entered Four Season Valley. The avalanche had stopped, but his thoughts of leaving the valley right away disappeared as he raised his head and looked at the new snow mountain. It was so high that it almost connected to the sky. Although the outer layer of snow looked hard, no one could be sure that it wouldn't collapse if someone started to climb on it. Even if Qian Jin had successfully climbed to the very top of the snow peak, the snow on the very top wouldn't be as hard as the snow at the bottom. If he stepped on the wrong location, it would be hard to say if he would fall into the snow and get stuck there or not. The scariest thing was, Qian Jin saw a pair of sharp and vicious eyes on the very top of the snow peak. Immediately after their eyes met, all the hair on Qian Jin's body straightened. Demon Beast. Snow Tiger. Qian Jin grasped the Zamadeo tightly subconsciously. The books in the Qian family's library had a record of snow tigers. Snow tigers were a very rare level 3 demon beast. They were as fast as the wind, and their claws could tear through rocks. They had a deep sense of territorial dominance. If anyone under the rank of demon fighter engaged in battle with a snow tiger, the only outcome would be death under the snow tiger's claws. After only looking at the snow tiger's eyes once, Qian Jin knew that he didn't need to double-check if the record in the book was accurate or not. He was glad that he didn't try to climb the snow peak earlier. Otherwise, it would be considered an intrusion of its territory by the snow tiger. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 more white shadows appeared on the thick snow peak. Qian Jin's heart instantly dropped to his stomach. 3 snow tigers. The 2 white shadows were another 2 mature snow tigers. They were at least 3 meters in length, even if their tails were excluded. Phew! Thank God! Qian Jin slowly backed off with the Zamadeo in his hand. Although these snow tigers' eyes were filled with vicious intent, it seemed like they were in fear as well. They were scared of entering Four Season Valley. Snow Tiger. A rare level 3 demon beast, very aggressive and typically not scared of anything. However, if it was scared of something, it would be scared of it forever and would never get close to it. Qian Jin didn't know what these snow tigers were scared about in Four Season Valley, but he knew that he was safe for now. These 3 snow tigers could tear him into pieces, but they weren't going to enter Four Season Valley anytime soon. Qian Jin calmed down and took out the treasure map that showed the location of Supreme Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll. He tried to figure out where he was and where he should go by looking at the map and the corresponding symbols to the terrain in the valley. After some comparison, Qian Jin concluded that this map wasn't fake. Most of the symbols and drawings on the map matched up with the actual terrain. If the creator of the map didn't come here, the map wouldn't be this detailed. From the look of it, after walking into the inner portion of Four Season Valley, getting through a little forest, and then walking by a stone forest, I should be able to see a lake. After that, the Supreme Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll is hidden at this location at the lake. Qian Jin raised his head and sighed. He planned to come here later, but since he was already in Four Season Valley and the exit was blocked off by 3 snow tigers, he was better off taking the chance to try to find this Supreme Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll on the map. Qian Jin turned around and looked at the 2 girls who just squeezed out of the cave. He scratched his head as he felt a headache. He wasn't sure if this forest was safe or not. He was a level 10 warrior, but he couldn't be sure if he would survive. If he brought them along, then the last small chance of surviving would be gone. Should I just leave them here? Qian Jin scratched his head again as he was really troubled. Even if I'm going to leave them here, I will have to try to find them some food. We came here together, so I can't really just ditch them here and forget about them, he thought. Ah! Sophia's high-pitched scream interrupted and scared Qian Jin. He turned around and realized that the swordswoman had seen the 3 snow tigers on the snow peak. Qian Jin smiled. No wonder why Sophia let out such a surprised scream. When I first saw those 3 beasts, I was so scared that I almost peed my pants. Don't be scared, you two. Qian Jin ran to the 2 girls and said, they seem to be scared of Four Season Valley. From what I read in a book, they won't enter this valley. We should try to find some food first. Chapter 97. Energy Stone Load. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Editor. Food. Sophia pointed at the little forest in the distance and said, there are some pine nuts that we can eat. There is also a lot of jerky and bread stored in a tree that is empty inside. Jerky. Bread. Qian Jin looked at Sophia in surprise. Have you guys entered here before? A sad expression appeared on Sophia's face as she lightly nodded her head. All her friends had died and she was the only survivor, all because of an energy stone load. If she knew this was the end result, then she would never have agreed to risk her teammates' lives to try to find the energy stone load. From Sophia's reaction, Qian Jin knew why the Fire Adventure team was able to find the energy stone load, despite numerous academics and mining professionals concluding that it didn't exist in Sunset Mountains. It turned out that the energy stone load wasn't in the part of Sunset Mountains that people deemed safe in the first place. It was in the dangerous area of Four Season Valley where numerous demon beasts lived. The Fire Adventure team risked their lives and found this energy stone load, so Sophia was able to point out the jerky and bread they stored in the tree. How many people can it feed? How long can it last us? Qian Jin woke up from his train of thought and asked the burning question on his mind. Sophia also recovered a little and said lightly with a sad tone, if we only take what we need, it will last us about 10 days. 10 days. Qian Jin thought about it and said, if you two eat it, it should last you guys more than 10 days. Sophia suddenly took a big step back and stared at Qian Jin with caution as her level 6 warrior energy instantly traveled to her fists. Qian Jin was surprised by Sophia's reaction. He laughed and said, relax, I'm not going to kill you two and keep all the food for myself. There is no benefit in surviving a few more days in this valley. Even if I kill you guys and use you as food, I probably can't survive this winter in Four Season Valley. None of us know when the winter started. Sophia felt her skull numb, and the body hair on her body straightened. For the first time, she felt fear towards Qian Jin. Although she knew Qian Jin was just making an example, hearing a grade 1 warrior student talking about killing people and storing them as food without a change in his expression made her feel a chill rush down her spine and into her bones. Are you familiar with this place? Qian Jin stopped looking at Sophia and stared at the little forest instead. Did you guys encounter any animals or demon beasts in there? He asked. Sophia quietly shook her head as she also shifted her focus onto the little forest. She said as she recalled her memory. We came here twice. Both times, we didn't see any animals or demon beasts, but... Qian Jin nodded as he agreed. Not encountering any animals or demon beasts the first 2 times didn't mean that it was safe. Animals and demon beasts weren't couch potatoes who laid in their caves and didn't like coming out. If he wasn't lucky, he might meet some vicious animal or demon beasts who came out for a little walk today. Be careful. Be careful. And be even more careful. After the numerous days he spent in West Mountain in the Endless World, Qian Jin had suffered many injuries due to his carelessness. With that experience, he knew that there was nothing wrong with being more careful and prepared. Giving everything he had and functioning at his peak was the best way to deal with surprises. Let me go and check. You guys wait here. After Qian Jin explained what he was about to do, he grabbed onto his Zamadeo and tiptoed his way into the little forest carefully. He looked like an agile cat in Sophia's eyes. With her hands in front of her chest, quiet spells came out of her mouth as she chanted. She used the limited spiritual power she had and tried to arrange the magic elements in a way so she could cast a slow spell. If Qian Jin really encountered a vicious beast, casting a slow spell on the beast might help Qian Jin turn the battle around and win. Gabriella tried her hardest to arrange the magic elements for the slow spell. She tried to control the magic elements that didn't listen to her will at all. But when Qian Jin entered the little forest, she was still not ready to cast it. Qian Jin walked into the little forest and squinted his eyes to carefully observe his surroundings. There were a lot of questions on his mind. Why isn't this Four-Season Valley the same as the one I read in the books? Shouldn't there be danger at every step? Isn't this the place where vicious animals and demon beasts walk around? Why can't I spot any vicious animals or sense any danger in this little forest? The only animals I can see are some rabbits and fat rats. The little forest didn't occupy a lot of space. It was rectangular shaped and about 200 meters in length and 150 meters in width. There were no vicious beasts around. Qian Jin walked back to the edge of the little forest and waved at the two girls. After Sophia entered the little forest, she rushed towards a thick pine tree and quickly climbed to the very top. After she took out 2 leather bags from a hole in the tree, she jumped off of the tree and found Qian Jin squatting under a tree and busy working with his hands. Found it. It's right. Sophia heard Qian Jin talking to himself excitedly. She then saw him take out a green snake that was about 2 feet long in hibernation. Qian Jin pulled the tip of the Zamadeo through the snake's belly and opened up the snake's stomach. With his fingers pressing around the opening, a dark green circular object popped out. It was the snake gall. Do you guys want to eat it? Both Sophia and Gabriella were scared and frightened. They both quickly shook their heads and watched Qian Jin consume the raw snake gall. How? Did you know? Sophia looked at Qian Jin as she couldn't wrap her head around it. How did you know that there is a snake here? I read it in a book. Qian Jin answered casually. He wandered around in the little forest with the Zamadeo and the dead snake in his hands. He found another 12 green snakes that were about 2 feet long each. After consuming their galls, he threw all the dead snakes to Gabriella, who was already shaking on the snowy ground due to the coldness. After skinning them, we can roast them. They will last us a few more days, he said. Gabriella, who was usually timid and scared when she encountered anything new, surprised Sophia with her braveness. She grabbed onto the dozens of dead snakes without any fear. After she ate all sort of food with Qian Jin in Sunset Mountains, she had gotten used to it. Qian Jin looked at Sophia, who was also rubbing her hands together, and said, "It is cold out here. You guys should go back to the cave." "What about you?" Sophia asked Qian Jin in worry. Although it was currently safe when they inspected this part of Four-Season Valley, if Qian Jin wasn't around them, they would feel a lack of security. "I'm just going to walk around." Qian Jin's eyes shined as he asked, "Since you've been here before, did you guys go into that stone forest?" Sophia's cheek that turned red in the cold instantly paled, and fear flashed through her eyes. However, her face immediately turned back to normal after as she waved her hands and said, "No, I never been there." Qian Jin slowly frowned as he heard Sophia's inconsistent tone and saw her changing expression. That moment of fear indicated that this woman had been to the stone forest, so why would she lie, he thought to himself. Sophia subconsciously lowered her head as she felt a bit guilty under Qian Jin's stare. However, she tried to pump herself up and stared back at Qian Jin. She made the decision in her mind that she wouldn't let out the truth under any circumstance. The 3 years of friendship between us couldn't help resist the temptation of keeping the energy stone load to ourselves. This young man I just met not too long ago is also a warrior. Who knows if he would behave the same as Wilfred and try to kill us two girls to keep it for himself, she thought. Could it be? A light bulb lit up in Qian Jin's mind as his body shivered. Could it be that the energy stone load is in the stone forest? After he thought about energy stone load, Qian Jin's heart started to tremble uncontrollably. Even if the energy stone load was very small, even Fabratus, who was a guardian of Oakland City, would try his best to seize it for himself. Energy stone loads to warriors was like fresh and delicious flesh to beasts. Even selfless warriors wouldn't be able to face an energy stone load calmly. Although energy stones couldn't guarantee warriors a successful future as a great warrior, it gave warriors a better future than those who didn't have it if both warriors were on the same playing field. Sometimes, energy stone loads were found in densely populated areas. In those situations, even big influential families and powerhouses would engage in fights to keep the energy stone load to themselves. At those moments, even the laws of Zent's empire wouldn't be followed. As long as the winner of the fight registered an energy stone mining license and gave a portion of the energy stone to Zent's empire as tax, no one would care about the people who got killed in the fight. Even big and powerful families couldn't resist the temptation of large energy stone loads, so what would happen if this young man whose goal was to become a great warrior knew about it? Qian Jin laughed bitterly as he looked at Sophia's expression again. I can guess why you are so conscious about the stone forest and are cautious towards me. An energy stone load does intrigue me a lot, but I still couldn't kill you guys just for this energy stone load. I just can't do it, he said. I have something I need to do. The food probably won't help us survive the days to come in this four-season valley. After Qian Jin said that, he carefully walked deeply into the small forest with the Zamedeo and quickly disappeared. A rush of cold wind blew into the forest, and it made the two girls feel even colder. Gabriella hugged herself with her arms and said timidly as she looked at the absent-minded Sophia, "You have misunderstood Qian Jin. If he wanted you dead, he wouldn't risk his life during the avalanche and save you." A stunned expression appeared in her blue eyes. She suddenly realized that she had actually forgot that Qian Jin saved her life. If Qian Jin only ran with Gabriella on his back, he wouldn't be in a dangerous situation at all. However, Qian Jin decided to put himself in a dangerous situation and put her in his arms. Sophia walked out of the little forest with Gabriella quietly. She asked Gabriella, who was a bit smaller than her and walking in front of her quietly, Are you not worried that he would kill us just to keep the secret about the energy stone load? It's an energy stone load. It's similar to you mages finding a magic stone load, it provides the same value." No, Gabriella turned around quickly, and her big mage hat fell to the ground. With her smooth and long black hair fluttering in the wind, she said, "I believe Qian Jin." Chapter 98. A strange lake, strange fishes, and a strange person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Editor. Sophia was stunned. When she met Gabriella yesterday, she was wearing a big mage hat that covered her face. She hadn't seen Gabriella's face at all until now. She thought that Gabriella covered her face because she was ugly. However, even the reflection of sunlight off the crystal white snow wasn't as pretty as Gabriella. Her fine facial features were so beautiful that they looked like they were carved out by the best artist in history. With a hint of timidity etched deep in her personality, an unprecedented firmness appeared in her beautiful eyes. Even the stars in the night sky couldn't be compared with them. Beauty. Sophia was always very confident in her looks, but she was shocked the moment she saw Gabriella's face, as if she was struck by lightning. She had never seen someone that beautiful before. The big mage hat wasn't there for hiding away her ugliness, it was there for hiding away this peerless beauty. I believe him. He won't do that. Gabriella bent her back and knees to pick up the mage hat and quickly put it back on her head. The hat once again blocked the beautiful face that could cause a war between powerful men. The little forest wasn't closely connected to the stone forest. There were plains located between the two, about a kilometer in length. Qian Jin carefully looked up at the vultures that were flying in circles above him. These could only be considered vicious animals and not demon beasts. However, they could still lift a newborn horse with their claws and wings, and their sharp claws could tear an ordinary person's head off his or her body easily. The vultures circled in the sky as they watched Qian Jin get very close to the stone forest. Their animal instincts told them that if this prey entered the stone forest, it would be hard for them to dive down and strike it. Suddenly, a vulture shook its wings and dove down at Qian Jin from the sky. It flew at such a high speed that it looked like an arrow. Its sharp claws that reflected the chilling light targeted Qian Jin's shoulders. Qian Jin was walking towards the stone forest with his eyes focusing at the front. After he felt a vulture diving down at him from the sky, he suddenly pulled his legs apart. Both of his hands grabbed onto the Zamadeo tightly, and he struck the blade upwards. The level 10 warrior energy instantly filled the body of the Zamadeo like a fast river, and Qian Jin felt like he was connected with the Zamadeo by blood for the first time. The vulture was split into two pieces after the blade flashed through it, and the two parts twitched in the snow a little before stopping. Qian Jin looked at the vulture on the ground, and then at the quiet little forest in the distance away as he said to himself with a smile on his face, "This animal can probably last us a few meals. It's winter anyways, and it's covered in snow and ice. Since the meat won't rot anytime soon, I will bring it back to the cave when I come back." Qian Jin conducted his level 10 warrior energy into Zamadeo again. He experienced what a warrior weapon really was for the first time. The feeling he got from filling the warrior weapon with his level 10 warrior energy was completely different from when he only had level 9 warrior energy. When he was a level 9 warrior, he felt like he was injecting his warrior energy into an open container. Now, he felt like the Zamadeo was connected with him by blood. If he was facing those 3 level 9 warriors again, Qian Jin was confident that it wouldn't be much of a problem anymore. His connected energy reservoirs were on another level compared to each energy reservoir operating in isolation. This was the feeling of a level 10 warrior who had just advanced. As time passed by, Qian Jin knew that the small branches that connected the 10 energy reservoirs were going to become thicker. By that time, the amount of warrior energy he could use at once would be much greater. On top of that, he was also practicing and increasing his physical strength in the endless world. Even if Lucas hired a veteran level 10 warrior as his personal bodyguard, Qian Jin was sure that he could eliminate this bad tumor that was threatening his life. The stone forest was just as quiet as the little forest. When Qian Jin stepped on the thick accumulated snow, it made squeaky noises. That was the only sound that Qian Jin could hear. The snow over there seems to be thinner. Qian Jin observed the snow on the ground in the stone forest, and he quickly made this finding. There was an area on the ground where the snow looked thinner. With a more detailed observation, he could find traces of something burying and hiding underneath. Compared to the wolf packs and killers in the endless world, this method of burying and hiding seems very rough. Qian Jin followed the traces and walked forward. He sighed in his mind. The line-up of this adventurer team isn't great. They should have at least one member who's great at burying, hiding, and creating fake terrains. They were probably too poor. Anyone who is interested in adventuring and has a specialty asks for high prices. These people are always recruited by big adventurer teams, and even mercenary teams. All the traces of hiding led to a huge rock, where it suddenly disappeared. Qian Jin raised his head and looked up at this huge rock that had a height of about 2 to 3 men and had a radius of 2 meters. After some careful calculations, he knew that this rock weighed at least 1,500 pounds. The weight, along with the fact that it was frozen from the ice and snow around it, was a big issue. This was especially the case since someone had poured cold water around it and made the connection between it and the ice and snow even firmer. Even if Qian Jin could lift up 1,500 pounds of weight, he didn't think he could move this rock. Qian Jin put his Zamadeo aside and drew up on all of his available warrior energy. He placed his palms on the rock, stomped and pushed his feet against the ground with all of his might, but the rock didn't budge at all. This rock is a bit too heavy, isn't it? Qian Jin walked around this huge rock as he observed it. He had to admit that although his strength had increased drastically since he started working as a blacksmith, the combined strength of 3 veteran adventurers was probably greater than his. Even if that was the case, the huge rock should have still moved a little. Before he started training in the Endless World, he could still slowly drag a 1,000-pound hammer across the floor at Blake's blacksmith shop, so why couldn't he move this rock even a little bit? One of the most important skills Qian Jin had learned from the Endless World was observing things with great detail. After he walked around this huge rock many times, he found light traces of ropes that were used to lift this rock. Qian Jin quickly looked around and tried to find more traces on the rocks around him. He found out why a few mature adventurers could move this rock. They had obviously used the rocks around here and created a pulley system using the ropes. But did they leave the ropes and pulley behind? If they did, where, he thought. After Qian Jin looked around once more, he gave up on trying to find more traces. He also thought about slowly chopping this rock into pieces with the Zamadeo, but he rejected this intriguing idea as well. Once he opened the entrance, it would be hard to close it again. There were a lot of demon beasts who liked eating energy stones to improve their power. If he opened the entrance now, it might lead to more unnecessary problems. Whatever. Since I already know the location, I will have many opportunities to mine it. I should go and find the wind and cloud power training scroll. Qian Jin bit his teeth as he stomped on the ground. He grabbed the Zamadeo and quickly traveled through the stone forest carefully. He wasn't worried that his footsteps might be discovered by other people. After experiencing 2 avalanches in one day and the 3 snow tigers who guarded the snow peak that blocked off the entrance, it would be impossible for other people to enter Four Season Valley. If anyone wanted to come in, they would have to speak to the snow tigers who heavily protected their territories. The stone forest was much larger than what Qian Jin had expected. After he traveled about the same distance as the entrance passage to Four Season Valley, he finally walked out of the enormous stone forest. The lake was only about 20 meters away from the stone forest. As soon as Qian Jin walked out of the stone forest, he felt waves of heat splashing onto his face. It was like he was in a hot steam room and not in Four Season Valley that was going through winter. Qian Jin wasn't even patient enough to find the source of the heat. He took out the map from his pocket and looked at it carefully. Then, he quickly walked towards the edge of the lake on his right. Hot. Qian Jin walked along the bank of the lake and felt like it was a hot summer day. He didn't believe that it was winter in Four Season Valley. The high heat was coming off of the lake, but the lake water wasn't boiling at all. Also, a few golden-colored fish jumped out of the water every now and then. What kind of fish are these? Why haven't they been cooked by the hot water? Qian Jin was gradually getting less surprised by all the strange events at Four Season Valley. He was only staring at the quiet surface of the lake with his guard up. Qian Jin wasn't sure if a huge demon fish would jump out of the lake and eat him alive. If he died in a fish's mouth, that would be too shameful. This lake filled with hot water was really big. After Qian Jin walked along the bank for about an hour, a bright smile appeared on his face as he finally saw a huge rock that was about 20 meters tall and 10 meters in diameter. This terrain was identical to the symbol on the map. No one would enter Four Season Valley on a normal day, so the wind and cloud power training scroll should be hidden on the other side of the huge rock according to the map. Qian Jin paced himself and quickly walked around the huge rock. However, he didn't find any trace of engravings or cracks on the rock. Could it be buried under the ground? Qian Jin had read a lot of stories written by traveling poets, but there was one that was on Qian Jin's mind at this moment. This was someone who found the corpse of a great warrior. He tried to bury the corpse out of goodwill, but he ended up finding the source that made him extremely strong underground when he tried to dig up a tomb for the great warrior. Since he was already here, Qian Jin wasn't going to back off easily. Because he didn't wake up the Elf King bloodline, his path to becoming a great warrior was now filled with thorns. The Qian family wasn't going to spend any resources and energy on someone who failed to awaken the bloodline. He was on his own. The precious warrior weapon Zamadeo was now being used as a shovel up a big pile of soil. If the mayor of Oakland saw this scene, he would shout at Qian Jin for being too wasteful and curse him for using a warrior weapon as a dirty shovel. Qian Jin was a level 10 warrior and had a huge amount of physical strength. After a while, Qian Jin dug out a deep hole into the ground that could bury him twice. Could it be that this isn't the right location? Qian Jin climbed out of the hole with the Zamadeo. Although his face was dirty, he chose another location and started to dig again. 1 hole. 2 holes. 3 holes. 5 holes. It was noon by the time Qian Jin had dug up more than 10 holes. His body was sweating like crazy as he worked beside the hot lake that caused the air around it to moisten. His arms felt fatigue, which he hadn't felt for a while. "Hey, what are you trying to dig up?" "Some remains." Qian Jin answered casually, but his voice suddenly paused. His body shook as a chilling sensation went down his spine and he held on to the Zamadeo tightly. He then raised his head and looked up at the source of the deep male voice that just spoke in a joking tone. The sunlight shined down onto the ground, and Qian Jin could only see a tall and tough black figure since he was looking up from a deep hole. From Qian Jin's perspective, this black figure gave him a powerful presence. It seemed like this man could break the skies and shake the earth. Chapter 99. Second place forever. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Editor. Qian Jin's eyes immediately adjusted to the eye-piercing sunlight, and he stared at an elder who was standing beside the hole. The elder had a full head of white hair, and his hands were at his back as he smiled friendly. However, Qian Jin's rapid and intense heartbeat didn't slow down. No sensation. Qian Jin didn't sense anything at all. After Qian Jin had begun practicing and training in the endless world, this was the first time that he didn't sense someone approaching him this close. He didn't sense this elder at all despite the small distance. After a blink of an eye, Qian Jin quickly calmed down from his shock. The level 10 warrior energy that instantly appeared around his body to protect himself returned to his body. The elder that was as strong as a bear and standing beside the hole in the ground was surprised as well. A sense of surprise flashed through his smiling face. He was surprised that this young man was already a level 10 warrior despite his young age. However, what surprised him more was that this young man could make such a decision in a split second during his shock and calm his disturbed emotions down. This. Qian Jin swiped the dirt off his body with his hands. He looked a bit cleaner. Then, he put his hand up and reached out for the elder as he said, "Elder, I'm kind of tired after digging all these holes. Could you please help pull me out of here?" The elder laughed as he reached out his hands and grabbed onto Qian Jin's hand. Qian Jin instantly felt the power in the elder's thick hands. It was the kind of power that he couldn't fight against. Qian Jin kicked the wall of the hole with both of his feet as the elder pulled and swung his wrist. Qian Jin instantly flew out of the dirty hole that he dug out. The elder was surprised again as he watched Qian Jin land onto the ground easily and firmly. Qian Jin's lower half of his body was stronger than he thought. If a warrior only focused on improving his or her warrior energy, he or she couldn't stand still after getting pulled and through by that force. Elder. Qian Jin pointed out his thumb. He didn't hesitate to show his praise for the elder. He also thought to himself, is the guardian of Oakland Fabritas or this elder, who is as tough and thick as a bear, stronger? The elder smiled as he observed Qian Jin. He looked like he was appreciating a beautiful art piece. "Kid, what are you trying to find? Why did you dig so many holes on the ground?" he asked. Although the elder had white hair and a white beard, his skin had no wrinkles. He had the skin of a middle-aged man. However, his eyes were very strange. They were a pair of eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything in this world. Qian Jin had seen these eyes once before. Qian Zhenwu, the head elder of the branch family in the Qian family, had a pair of eyes that was very similar to this elder's. Qian Jin didn't like the feeling of being seen through by someone else. He raised his head and stared back at the elder. "This elderly warrior is much stronger than me. If he's here as well, then he probably wants the wind and cloud power training scroll too. It looks like the traveling poets are right. There are always more than one copy of a treasure map. I should just admit it directly. If I don't dare to admit why I'm here, then I will be looked down upon," he thought to himself. "I'm here for wind and cloud power training scroll." The elder's eyes that could see through everything suddenly shined. A sense of surprise and delight flashed on his face. "You found the map about wind and cloud power training scroll. You dare to come here despite the dangers in Four Season Valley?" he asked. Qian Jin shook his head forcefully, and he shook out the soil and dirt off of his hair. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he said, "Some people are born with a silver spoon in their mouths, but others are born with grassroots in their mouths. If the people who were born with grassroots in their mouths don't try their hardest and instead complain about their background and be jealous of others' luck, then would these people have a chance of succeeding in life?" A surprised expression flashed by the elder's face for the third time today. He secretly gasped in admiration. Although it's impressive to be a level 10 warrior at this age and it's rare to see people making a split-second decision, the most precious things this young man has are his eyes that can see the essence of matters, his brave heart and his daring attitude. "Interesting, very interesting." The elder laughed as he nodded. "There are a lot of people who are older than you that still complain about their family backgrounds. They haven't thought about the ancestors of the big families. These people were once just like them. Those ancestors of the big families once had nothing as well," he said. "Yes, elder. What you said is interesting as well." Qian Jin didn't feel any malicious intent from the elder. Since he was also very tired from digging all the holes, he started to chat with the elder. "It doesn't matter if the map said that the location of the scroll is in this Four Season Valley. Even if it said that the scroll is on the human-demon battlefront, I would still go there just to have the chance to become a great warrior." Human-demon battlefront. This recommendation isn't bad. A serious expression appeared on the elder's face. "Then, you could try putting wind and cloud power training scroll on the human-demon battlefront. But then the issue is whether you'd be willing to wait for someone like yourself to go onto the human-demon battlefront to find it," the elder said. Qian Jin didn't pick up where the elder had left off. Both of his eyes stared at the elder whose figure looked like a bear. He soon became very excited, and he asked as he stuttered, Elder. You said you are the one who drew the map for the wind and cloud power training scroll." The elder stroked his white beard on his chin and said with a proud expression on his face, "Of course." "Not bad, you reacted faster than I thought." "Yes, I'm the one who drew the map. In fact, I drew a few maps. Right after I drew them, I came to live in this Four-Season Valley." At the beginning, the elder tapped the huge piece of rock and said, "I built my house on this side of the rock. But after a long time, no one came. Since I also grew tired of the view and scenery, I moved my place near another rock not too far away. If you didn't dig up all these holes, I wouldn't have known that you came." Qian Jin instantly felt like he had been greatly blessed. At the same time, he found it ironic. For all this time, he thought that Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll was a book, but it was actually a person. If he didn't falsely believe the story from a traveling poet and didn't try to dig up these many holes, he might have really missed this opportunity. Kid, not bad. The elder tapped Xian Jin's shoulder, and a lot of soil fell off of it. You are really good. I was stunned when I saw you. I was only a level 4 warrior when I was in your age, while you are already a level 10 warrior. At first, I thought you were a bloodline warrior genius. Xian Jin smiled bitterly, but he didn't give any explanation. The endless world was way too mysterious. If it wasn't for the endless world and the crazy training, there was no chance that he could become a level 9 warrior. Furthermore, if he didn't get the stimulation from the avalanche and the energy stone, he wouldn't have advanced to a level 10 warrior anytime soon, even if he was lucky. What's more important is that you still understand the importance of having a strong body and not just warrior energy. The elder was going off and praising Qian Jin as he walked around him one round after another. Most people only focus on increasing and adding to their warrior energy. They forget that the real container for the warrior energy is their body, and not their energy reservoirs. You are very special. Although your lower half body isn't as strong as your upper half body, it's still stronger than most people your age. Xian Jin was very thankful towards Blake in the endless world. If Blake didn't give him the mission of finding the mine in West Mountain, then his lower body would be a lot weaker. When he got pulled up by the elder from the deep hole, he probably would have had difficulty standing still. A level 10 warrior. With a strong physical body, you only need to improve a little bit. After you become a demon fighter, you will be able to learn the wind and cloud power training scroll. With one hand on his chin, the elder smiled as he said happily, not bad, I didn't waste all these years for nothing. Xian Jin was feeling a bit uncomfortable after the elder stared at him for a long time. He quickly spoke to get rid of this feeling. Do I have to become your disciple in order to get the wind and cloud power training scroll? The elder laughed. He found what Xian Jin said very funny, despite it not being hilarious. Of course. The wind and cloud power training scroll isn't just some ordinary training scroll. How could I give it to you before you acknowledge me as your master, he said. Xian Jin didn't doubt what the elder said. Just the elder's power and strength proved everything. Although a set of advanced training scrolls couldn't make a warrior great for sure, it would greatly increase that chance. It looks like you believe me, but you don't know and understand the glorious history that the wind and cloud power training scroll has. After, Xian Jin saw the elder sit directly down on the ground. He wasn't planning on standing up and walking around anytime soon. He got the feeling that the elder was going to speak for a very long time. Could it be that this elder has lived in Four Season Valley for so long and never had anyone to talk to? Now that he has finally found someone he can talk to, is he going to let out everything? Xian Jin suspected. Kid, sit down and listen to me. If you don't know about the glorious history that the wind and cloud power training scroll has, then you won't understand the honor regarding it. Without this, how could you train effectively in the wind and cloud power training scroll? The elder patted the wet soil beside him as he said, I'm sure you know that there are 6 ultimate supreme bloodlines in this world, right? Xian Jin nodded, he didn't disagree. After mentioning the ultimate supreme bloodline, most people in Zhen's empire would say that there were 3 ultimate supreme bloodlines, but they had forgotten that there were also 3 types of ultimate bloodline in the Demon Empire. In total, there were 6 ultimate supreme bloodlines on this continent. But Xian Jin lightly frowned as he thought, there seems to be no connection between the ultimate supreme bloodline and the wind and cloud power training scroll. Envied, great. You aren't like other idiots who try to correct me and tell me *T like there are only 3 ultimate supreme bloodlines. The elder said in delight. You frowned because you think there is no connection between the ultimate supreme bloodline and the wind and cloud power training scroll, right? Kid, you are wrong if you think like that. When the creator of the wind and cloud power training scroll trained to its limit, the Elf King bloodline warrior from the Qian family had the ultimate awakening. Brzezinski, the creator of the wind and cloud power training scroll, secretly fought with all of the powerful warriors and never lost. Until An unfortunate expression appeared on the elder's face. Even if Qian Jin was thinking with his knees and not his brain, he knew that this Berjersky probably secretly fought the most powerful warrior in Zhen's empire at the time, the Elf King bloodline warrior who had the ultimate awakening. Until he met Qian Kunj, the strongest warrior in Zhen's empire. Both of them agreed to a secret fight. The elder said in a pitiful tone as he sighed and lightly shook his head. Unfortunately, he was just a little bit short. It was really close. He came a bit short and barely lost to Qian Kunj. Chapter 100. The most brilliant era has come. To be number one. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong editor. Ice-T, was there such a thing? Qian Jin looked at the elder doubtfully. He had read all the notes written by all the bloodline warriors in the Qian family who had achieved the ultimate awakening. Those notes were very random. There weren't any training tips, but there were a lot of personal stories and experiences. Qian Kunj's writing was very natural, wild, and unconstrained. Anyone who read his writings would never forget about it. Qian Jin searched his memories. Although there were a few records of cruel and dangerous fights, the opponents were demons like the Demon King of his time, as well as fallen angel bloodline warriors who were also ultimate supreme bloodline warriors. The name Berjersky had never appeared in Qian Kunj's notes. Qian Jin had read Qian Kunj's notes several times. He tried to see if Qian Kunj subconsciously left any clues regarding a warrior's training to no avail. What he did learn was that Qian Kunj wasn't someone who was afraid of losing. Anyone who left a profound impression in his mind was mentioned in his notes. If what the elder said was true, then such a close and heroic fight shouldn't have been left out of the notes, and the name Berjersky should have been mentioned. After a few hundred years. A very proud expression appeared on the elder's face as he spoke. Another great and powerful warrior who trained using the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll appeared. Just like the creator of the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll, he also started to privately challenge all the great warriors around the empire. He won all the fights, but unfortunately. It was about the time that the Tri-Head Golden Dragon Ultimate Supreme Bloodline Warrior appeared. Qian Jin thought as he scratched his head and smiled bitterly. All three ultimate supreme bloodline warriors from Zhen's empire had never appeared at the same time. There were special intervals between them. After one ultimate supreme bloodline warrior passed away, a new bloodline warrior from one of the two other families would have his or her ultimate awakening and become the most powerful warrior in Zhen's empire after that set time interval. A few hundred years after an Elf King bloodline warrior had their ultimate awakening, it became the Tri-Head Golden Dragon bloodline warrior's turn to have his or her ultimate awakening. The timing was the same on the demon side. A new ultimate supreme bloodline demon warrior would also have their ultimate awakening. Everything was so organized, as if the gods loved to watch the battles and didn't want one empire to conquer the other. Ah! The Tri-Head Golden Dragon bloodline warrior was way too strong. The elder sighed and shook his head just like before. So unfortunate. It was really unfortunate. So close. It was another close fight. After that fight, the inheritor of the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll also lived in seclusion, just like Berjersky. After a few hundred years passed again. The Ares bloodline warrior who had the ultimate awakening showed up. Qian Jin made a very educated guess. After the elder introduced the warrior who trained with the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll and lost to the Ares bloodline warrior, he didn't stop. His story traveled another few hundred years, and it was time for Elf King bloodline warrior from the Qian family to have the ultimate awakening. The Elf King bloodline ultimate warrior, the Tri-Head Golden Dragon bloodline ultimate warrior, and the Ares bloodline ultimate warrior. Then, the cycle would repeat, one after another. Qian Jin was so bored that his eyelids were becoming heavier and heavier. He didn't want to interrupt the elder who wanted to talk. He probably hadn't spoken to anyone in a long time, after all. Therefore, he had to listen to the story that looped again and again. After half an hour, the elder finally stopped the story. Qian Jin wasn't sure if the story was finally done or if the elder was just thirsty. Do you know what kind of glorious history the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll has now? The elder looked at Qian Jin as he encouraged him. This is the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll that could give you the opportunity to become the second most powerful warrior on this continent. Wait. Probably the third most powerful warrior. After Qian Jin listened to the elder's story, which hadn't recorded in the notes from the ultimate warrior from his former family for a long time, the interest he had in the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll dropped a lot. Although the elder in front of him was a powerful warrior who had the strength that no one could neglect, his Bulsh * ting and bragging skills were 1,000,000 times stronger than his warrior strength. Fortunately, gods were only something that people talked about and had never seen, otherwise. Qian Jin suspected that there might be a powerful warrior who trained using the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll. Likely secretly engaged in a fight with a god. The result was probably very unfortunate with a close fight. However, this warrior lost to a god. No, you won't be the third most powerful warrior. Let me do the math. The elder wrote on the ground with his finger as he calculated something. More and more disappointment accumulated on his face. By the end, the elder looked up at Qian Jin with a very distressed expression on his face as he said, "Kid, you are very unlucky. Even if you are lucky enough to train to the maximum level of the Wind and Cloud Power Training Scroll, you can probably only become the seventh most powerful warrior on this continent. Hey! It's not that bad. Even warriors who are ranked in the 100,000th place are considered great warriors. 7th place would make you a very great warrior." The 7th. Qian Jin looked at the elder as he asked. He was very confused. Why 7th place? You just said that if I'm lucky, I should be the third most powerful warrior. Ah! You weren't born in the right time. A painful expression appeared on the elder's face as he patted Qian Jin's shoulder to comfort him. Kid, do you know which one of the three families will have a bloodline warrior experience the ultimate awakening? Qian Jin laughed. How could he not know? The Qian family. Ha! You know something about that as well. A hint of surprise appeared in the elder's eyes. The smile on Qian Jin's face turned bitter. As someone who failed the primary awakening during the bloodline awakening ceremony, his only advantage was that he enjoyed reading. From the documentaries and calculations in the Qian family, one member of the Qian family who was around his age would have multiple bloodline awakening and end up with the ultimate awakening. By that time, he or she would become the strongest warrior and the backbone of Zhen's empire. Unfortunately, you don't see the full picture. The elder said as he pointed at the numbers he drew on the ground. Ever since the three ultimate supreme bloodline existed in Zhen's empire, the question and controversy of which ultimate supreme bloodline warrior is the strongest has never stopped. Qian Jin nodded as the elder spoke. He had to admit that other than the three ultimate supreme bloodline families who argued that their ultimate warriors were the strongest, even ordinary people continued disputing this controversy. Almost every bookstore would publish a book about which ultimate supreme bloodline warrior was the strongest, and all of these books had great selling records. The only thing was that the three ultimate supreme bloodline warriors had never met. Therefore, people only supported the ultimate supreme bloodline warrior of their choice, and this controversy never ended. After more than 10 years, or more than dozens of years, people won't mention this controversy anymore. The elder pointed at the numbers on the ground and said, "These are the years when ultimate supreme bloodline warriors appeared and the time intervals between them. I have done some calculations. Take a look." Qian Jin looked down at the numbers carefully. He became more surprised as he looked at the numbers, his eyes opened wider and wider, as well. After he finished, he looked at the elder with an unbelieving expression on his face as he asked, "You are saying the three ultimate supreme bloodline warriors?" "No. The 6 ultimate supreme bloodline warriors are going to appear on this continent at the same time after many years of staggering between them. Yes, that's right. The elder raised his head, which wasn't much smaller than a bear's head, proudly. The question that troubled humans and demons for numerous years was about to be solved. The authors who used this controversy to publish books and make money probably wouldn't have the opportunity to use their predictions to make money anymore. In the future, possibly even in the near future, the question of who was the strongest ultimate supreme bloodline warrior will be answered by the stone-cold fact. Qian Jin's heart pounded quickly as if a tsunami had just struck. He had never thought that the era where all three ultimate supreme bloodline warriors would appear around the same time. After he looked at the numbers and calculations the elder made based on the times when ultimate supreme bloodline warriors appeared, it looked like in his lifetime, all three ultimate supreme bloodline warriors would meet for the first time in history and determine who was really the strongest warrior in this era. No wonder. After Qian Jin thought about what went on in the Qian family, he realized that the Qian family already knew that all three ultimate supreme bloodline warriors would meet in this era and decide who was the most powerful ultimate bloodline warrior. When Qian Jin was still in the Qian family, the family valued warriors who awakened their bloodlines in recent years a lot more than what he read from the documentaries and books. Therefore, the elder looked at Qian Jin in pity and said, "Even if you are the luckiest warrior ever, you can only be the seventh strongest warrior on this continent." The seventh. The disdainful way that everyone in the Qian family looked at him after he failed the primary awakening appeared in Qian Jin's head. After he thought about his dad's aged figure and his lightly bent back, a strong feeling of anger lit up in his heart. He suddenly stood up and looked at the elder as he said, "Why only the seventh strongest warrior? Why can't the ultimate bloodline warriors be surpassed? If I'm going to give it my all, then my goal will be to become the greatest warrior. The absolute number one. The absolute number one." The smile suddenly froze on the elder's face, and it soon turned into surprise. He wasn't sure if he should say that Qian Jin was arrogant or if he simply had a lofty goal. Bloodline warriors who had their ultimate awakenings were called the living gods. The only people who could match up to them were other bloodline warriors who had their ultimate awakenings. "The absolute number one," Qian Jin replied. He didn't mind that the elder had exaggerated the effectiveness of the wind and cloud power training scroll. There were probably a lot of training scrolls that had a record of self-appreciation. After putting all the bullshit *t away, at least the elder who trained with the wind and cloud power training scroll was very strong. That probably explained why there wasn't a single vicious animal or demon beast from the entrance pathway of Four Season Valley to here. This elder probably killed and ate a lot of them, and the smart ones had backed off into the deeper parts of the valley. Four Season Valley. Qian Jin suddenly thought of a question. "Elder, how long ago did the winter start? How long has passed?" he asked. After some thinking, the elder said, "Probably about a month now." Qian Jin suddenly felt like his vision was turning black as the elder's answer resonated in his mind. About a month now. Wouldn't that mean there are still about 2 more years until the winter stops? If I want to leave this Four Season Valley, do I really have to wait 2 years?